time to get started on the winter food episode. Pete, Braden, anybody here? What's this?
Hmm?
Is it time? Is it? Oh, right. It's a time change.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Wait,
Oh,
time change. This isn't the winter food episode.
it's
What
March.
day is this?
Yeah.
What?
I ate my winter food.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's still freaking cold out, and I want freaking spring already.
Oh, we got it
What
here.
with
Ugh.
all this food I brought?
Oh
I'll eat it.
no. We'll eat. We'll have to take that off your hands.
Okay.
Your sacrifice is well appreciated.
Well, here. Let's talk about a story while we eat, because that's what you
Okay.
do in winter, right? It's still close
Absolutely.
enough to count.
Hi
So-
everyone. I guess I'm like months late. I've missed stuff.
Well,
Anything?
we've said repeatedly on show, scheduling has been a fun endeavor over the new year. So,
We're professionals.
of course, that's why I pay for everything on this podcast.
Exactly.
Wait, what?
Why do we have to be professionals? Can't we be just average professionals?
You know, I think I'm okay with that.
So, folks, if you haven't listened to us recently, and I get it, we are back doing the video game. We're doing Act 2 of The Lost Legends of Redwall, Part 1. Yeah, we're going to come to the reason why. And it's not because we're incredibly lazy. No, there is a legitimate reason for this time. This should sound familiar, but I'm having technical issues playing the game.
What?
It's basically Crisis.
Oh my god.
I get it.
And Soma Games, if you're listening, I do not blame you one bit for this. This is just comedy of errors at this point. In real speak, for those of you who are technically minded, I'm pretty sure the hard drives I keep my Steam library on are wearing out. They're a good 4 or 5 years old, which may be on the early side of hard drive lifespan, but yeah.
Hard drives fail.
Yeah, and they're mechanical, not solid state. So I'm looking to have to replace those and re-download my Steam library. Oh, good.
Huh.
500 games you don't play?
Sure. Gabe, if you are listening, I do hold you responsible. Frickin'
This is David's
Steam and their
fault.
sales.
Oh, hail the Gaben.
No, I am not ready for a miracle. Shut up.
Wait, is this our Half-Life 3 episode?
No, I was gonna say. In my case, it's blame Humble Bundle. They are dangerous.
Yeah.
Indeed. So we are into Act 2 and of the game, and it starts up pretty much exactly where we left off. Sort of. We get a prologue here where we're in the adults who are, if they're not drinking, they're just at least enjoying each other's company in the either Cavern Hall or Great Hall. I'm not sure which it is. So, and this includes brother, what's his face?
That's exactly his name.
Jethro, brother Jethro, Formal, a squirrel, and the nurse mole from the last episode, last time we saw this, and they're all mentioning, Jethro, you're such a great storyteller, but you probably need to stop telling scary stories to your grandson because he won't go to sleep.
I'm afraid the monsters under my bed will come and eat me. Also, the ghost of Clooney's gonna kill me.
Oh. But no, it's not that. It's that he didn't hear the end of the story, and we do get a justification why shortly here. We're told Brother Jethro was the story, but the grandson comes in. It's like, you left me hanging, Grandpa. I need to know what happens to the player character from the last episode. But you let me fall asleep. He's like, yeah. Why would I be a I'd be a terrible grandfather if I kept you up all night. We're also
So here,
given.
let me give you a convenient recap of everything that happened last
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, we get a quick recap. Basically, everything that happened last time starts, and it lets you pick your player character before this goes on. So, again, just when I tried to play this through legit, I tried to keep through Leanne because that's who I started with, and that's how the story was framed. So Sophia is the one who was injured by the Werette. Scum Snout. Of course. Can I feel bad for the Werette over that name? Is that
Did his
allowed?
parents name him that?
Well, I think the running theory we had last time was Clooney did it for funsies.
Yes, as he does.
I mean, he's Clooney. So.
Not true.
Although, truth be told, of all the villains we've seen, Clooney is he doesn't have great, HR practices, but he doesn't have bad ones either.
It's kind of hard to argue against. I'm a literal force of nature. You will bend to my will. That's the energy he puts off.
My point is, however, on he doesn't have bad ones, is that compared to other villains we have seen over the books, he doesn't care what your species is so long as you obey him.
Vermin HR wouldn't have too many problems with that.
Yeah. No, they wouldn't. But compared to, say, Badrang, who instantly distrusted any other stoat.
Yeah, true.
No. And I mean, that's not even opening the whole deep issue of Wildcats, because they're Wildcats.
Yeah.
So
the mascot for many colleges.
We're told that yes, we're going to pick up the story. Blah blah blah. We're also given a one sentence. They're gone. Oh God, about this poor grandson's home life.
I know.
Okay, I'm not the only one who picked that up, right?
Yeah.
Apparently his parents are fighting, and he can hear them.
That's too real.
That could mean a lot of things. Don't get me wrong. Sure, my parents disagreed with each other in front of me and my siblings as kids, but they were adult enough to either keep it under level tones and actively show us that adults solve things, rationally, logically, while still not denying their passion. But that could also mean the worst outcome, and oh God.
Yeah, on the one hand, it could be
who's one gets murdered
to wash the dishes. On the other hand, it could be I'm not happy with you as my partner.
Yeah, Matthias, can you repeat that? You broke up on your first sentence.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, on the one hand, it could be something as simple as whose job is it to wash the dishes? On the other, I want a divorce.
I'm not personally fulfilled.
Yeah, so that's a thing. I mean, we've never seen a marriage break up in Redwall before. And to be fair, I will credit the PBS animated series showing us that Matthias and Cornflower don't have a perfect relationship, because early in the Manameo season, Cornflower is trying to play mediator and peacekeeper between her son and her husband, and Matthias straight up says, "Keep out of this." Mm-hmm. Which, yeah, that's not exactly a great look, but
true.
Yeah, that
he's
one
not bad either, but he's not ruthless.
No, that one sentence coming from that kid, I'm like, oh no. So let's go on a happier note. The player character. Go ahead.
I will say that the recap feels perfect. I mean, it's been a while since I've done this, so maybe this is just nostalgia, but it goes back and forth over the bits that I've missed or forgotten since Act 1, and the whole narrative tone just feels pure Redwall. It's fantastic in my eyes.
Oh, I won't disagree with that. The recap is actually very well done. Not just the prologue here, but the kind of not quite tutorial that starts off the game.
Mm-hmm.
None of the game controls have changed, for the record. going here into Act 2.
Terrible.
But the entire first couple of minutes basically reintroduce you to the core controls. The first thing that happens is the player character, who you're not sure is going to survive this giant fall from the lighthouse to the ground, kind of off a small cliff. They pull a straight up Assassin's Creed and fall into a thatched roof that somehow breaks their fall enough that they aren't really that injured, but can get up from there.
Wait.
Tuck and roll.
Or talk about thatched roof cottages here?
Yes, in fact, we are.
Because I have a sneaking suspicion they could end up burninated.
Ooh.
We'll keep an eye out for that dragon.
Okay.
So essentially, Liam or Sophia wakes up falling from a thatched roof and relatively unharmed. And then from there on in, you have a short sequence getting to the meat of the game, where you are assisting other members of the Scout Corps who are fighting other rats. They're rats. We don't really tap into any other species yet, although stoats are later mentioned. And, I might as well just bring this up now. Don't get me wrong, I still really enjoy this game when it works for me. But one of the things you do not do in this game is direct combat. At least your character. Your character is always more of the, well, maybe not quite the sociopath that Kevin McAllister is from the Home Alone series, but you are in his style of using ad hoc traps or options around you to either distract or hit on the head with a beehive or otherwise squish the vermin that are in your way.
So you're the support / harasser role in a MOBA.
Yeah.
You're the rogue.
Pretty much. Yeah, you're capitalizing on their stupidity. They're very easily like, ooh, what's over here?
And
can I just say that the vermin, maybe it's just the dialogue that they're using combined with, it's intentionally kind of weak AI, so that you feel like you're sneaking around, but they feel dumber than usual. I mean, vermin once have always been stupid, but these guys feel particularly stupid.
Well, that goes back to my point earlier. Clooney didn't exactly discriminate on who he hired.
Fair.
And since this is a detachment of Clooney's own forces, my point stands. So
especially he's not there to run the show and make sure that they don't do particularly stupid things.
Yeah, I mean, he did delegate to Scum Snout, sure, but I don't think Scum Snout is all that great of a leader.
Yeah, he delegated to somebody named Scum Snout.
Yeah, he did. So you go along the way, and you're basically either one of them is you shoot a beehive out of the air, and it knocks the vermin out, or at least distracts them enough to give you and we get a bloodless death. It's on screen, but it is bloodless. Your fellow scout members who are wielding spears straight up stab the vermin in the gut. For kids.
Yeah. Well, it's Redwall.
It's Redwall. I mean, if you read the books, they go into a lot worse descriptions of what.
Oh yeah.
This is tame.
We have decapitations in the book.
We do.
I'm surprised we don't have disembowelings.
Well,
good point. Yeah.
And again, I actually, this is about the best way the game could do it in my 2 bits, where your compatriot stabs the vermin in the gut, pulls the spirit back out, the vermin kind of groan and then fall forward. And then they do that whole video game disappearing thing where bodies just kind of fade away. So, I mean, they're self-cleaning and or magical.
I mean, I was going to wait a little bit to talk about this, but I guess I'll touch on it now. Just the nature of AAA games versus AA games versus, is there a single A game designation? I don't know. But just that sliding scale of, let's look at the really super polished, everyone knows the names of these big game studios, they have millions of dollars at their disposal, versus Yeah, it's a couple of guys working in one of their garages on computers they got from like a secondhand place,
Yeah,
but
because they like Redwall.
yeah, because they have a passion project they want to work on. Now, I've seen a number of critiques of these games, uh, and the main thing that always seems to come out is some variation on the games not feeling polished. And I think a lot of gamers, both hardcore gamers and more casual gamers, have taken for granted the high quality of games nowadays. Specifically for our younger listeners,
Oh yeah,
back in the day on PC,
on
you had
DOS.
this DOS and the early days of like Windows 3.1, 95, 98, that era. You had to spend a lot of time making sure your drivers and configurations were correct. Otherwise, your games would not play. It just wouldn't. And it
Oh
was
yeah.
only the time the mid 2000s rolled around that we finally started to get like plug and play technology that made things better. Games could be more easily optimized. So when we have a game like this, yeah, we shouldn't accept big glaring errors, but they shouldn't necessarily be unexpected either. Game development is really hard, and I have to respect anybody trying to do what Soma Games has done with the amount of money and the number of people they have working for them. This is
Oh
actually
totally.
a particularly impressive result. It could have been so much worse than this.
I
And
mean,
they've
there is nothing bad I will say about these games. But I will completely agree with Matthias here. And speaking as a guy who has done what my own limited share of coding, uh, I once literally coded, not from scratch, I used a template, a copy of Pong in
Wow.
JavaScript, like one of the original video games. And uh, it took me the better part of a day to figure out why one of my paddles wasn't working. So I know debugging is a pain in the tuchus. So
Mhm.
the fact that errors happen in indie games, go through all what they do, and sometimes there's still problems or errors, yeah, it's gonna happen.
Yeah. So do the various individual pieces in this game like all fit together seamlessly? No. But do I expect them to? Also no. And to bring that back around to my original point, uh, sometimes when looking at this game, it very much reminds me of graphics from like 20 years ago, back when they had to do various tricks with textures and whatnot to make things seem a little bit more seamless. I'm sure the technology is much better in this game than it was 20 years ago, but the graphical fidelity certainly is reminiscent of that era. And so it's not a nitpick so much as I can see what people are talking about, but then they have expectations that, oh yes, this will look like fill in the blank of popular game by big studio here. And it's like that's not what we're gonna get. So
And not for nothing, a lot of popular high budget games these days ship broken.
yeah,
Yeah,
day one
absolutely.
patches are just like you shouldn't have day one patches. You're either
No.
crunching hard or you have scope creep. What's the deal?
I mean, this is not the going back to what you were saying earlier. This is not the 90s where console games, which were cartridge based at the day, or PC games, when not every internet was not widespread, you had to have a working product ready to go
Yeah.
on release. There
Which
is a
is
lot of leeway in the modern day over how much patches or anything that comes out, but yeah.
I will say, if you want to explore more on that topic, look into the video game crash of the 80s and a little game called E.T.
Yep.
Oh no.
I was at a museum several years ago and got to see one of those cartridges that they dug up from that New Mexico landfill. Yeah.
Huh. But let's get back to Redwall.
Yeah.
Or not quite
Yeah.
Redwall anyway. So
Big
so
video
yes. So the game proper begins. You help your those Scout Corps members kill the vermin, but good, and get to the dock to make your escape. And your fiancé character, are we told they're poisoned, or is that implied?
I think they call it a poison, but it's not actually poison. It's more like, hey, you got bit by somebody who had bacteria in their mouth,
Yeah.
and now your wound's infected with bacteria.
Septic
Like a
bite,
Komodo
got it.
dragon, yeah.
So yeah, so that's the thing, and you need to take them to what is possibly a ship. Was implied to be a ship. It's not the one ship, but a ship along the river where two neutral Stoat characters apparently are active healers and will almost treat anybody. So
yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that, because maybe this is just me. I'm open to the idea of having, like, quote unquote neutral vermin, but I have seen a whole lot of like attempts at gray characters that do them poorly. We won't get to these characters in this episode, but I hold out judgment until after we've seen them, but I'm not holding out too much hope. Mostly just because I've had some sour experiences. Bad fanfiction.
let's talk about
Yeah.
that. Again, we're going to withhold judgment on Soma Games' use of morally gray characters until we actually cover those characters. Fine. And if you remember, all the way back in our interview with the producers of the game, they mentioned these guys because that was before Act 2 had come out. So, again, let's hold off judgment on Soma Games' use here. But genuinely neutral characters in this franchise aren't common. Number one, some of them are, some of them aren't. You also get vermin who probably wouldn't be quote unquote vermin if the circumstances had been right. Blaggett, for example, who is the one I usually run to is when I'm most frustrated with this trope from Brian. I point out that Brian is absolutely aware of this problem. He just chooses to keep it more black and white.
Is it a metaphor for growing up in the hood?
You know, we may have to do an entire episode on that question.
I was halfway being facetious, but it's not a bad point.
I mean, I would love to do a deep dive on that, but we don't have the time or place here.
Yeah.
So
Actually, so much say the hood. That's more of an American thing.
Yes.
What is the British equivalent? Isn't that like chav culture?
I think so.
So
Any of our like UK listeners, if you'd be willing to just come on and talk about that from your perspective, because we are ignorant Americans, that would be
Right.
wonderful.
yeah. So back to the point, we're basically told that Redwall is too far. That we can't medevac Sophia or Liam, depending on who you're not playing, to Redwall because they're just too far out. However, there is a local resource, two Stoats, who will heal if under the right circumstances. If you also talk to the other members of the Scout Corps at the dock, other than your fiancé, because the player character is at first like, wait, what? You do hear at least one of them mentioning that they had friends who happened to be of vermin species when they were kids. So that leads ever more credence of whole nature versus nurture, which we will, I want to make a whole episode of that, actually.
Sure.
I really do. So, fair enough. But you're basically told that, hey, you want your fiancé to live? This is your only real option. And I'm okay with that as a game player. What gets next is probably the part of the game that, and Soma, if you're listening, I wasn't impressed by this section. I get why you did it, but I didn't like it a lot. So the next thing, what you're doing here is you are rowing your beloved across this Moss Creek, because it's not the full River Moss. It is implied to be a creek of some kind. That you're rowing them across to get them down the path towards these healers. Fine. Along the way, you have to comfort your fiance. And this part, unfortunately, there didn't seem to be a lot of good hints of what would have been the right or wrong answer.
I was like, that picture means something.
It is literal trial and error of what is the right thing to say to your beloved and what is not. And I'm all for, don't get me wrong, I'm all for dialogue in games to like have an effect on the plot, and you can make obviously wrong or right choices or more subtle ones. Like some of the best RPGs, like how the plot will shake out is completely dependent on what you say. Or, say Knights of the Old Republic was one of my favorite games that got into that. Or even they weren't as very well received, but I enjoyed them. The Telltale Game of Thrones side story, where you followed a minor northern house in the era during Westeros during the original series. Fine, because that would make small changes to the plot overall. Here it is, like I said, is literally trial and error of what will work for your fiance and what won't. And you're given 3 Zelda-esque hearts, and the right choices will keep the hearts filled. Wrong choice will either drop you a half or full heart. And I'm not going to lie to you, it took me about 5 times to get across the darn stream, and my fiance not losing morale, and I having to restart.
I started getting touchy about it. I'm like, if you don't like what I'm saying, we don't have to talk to each other.
Look, I know you're dying, honey, but I'm trying, okay?
Yeah, I'm trying here. I'm rowing the boat.
Do you know how hard it is to try to, like, comfort somebody and be, like, empathetic and stuff and row a boat at the same time? I'm trying, darn it.
Yep.
And if you've never rowed a boat before, or even just did, like, a rowing machine at the gym, it's hard work. It's one of the most, it is one of the most cardio-intensive things you can do. So, now, granted, you're not going at a great speed, so it's maybe not that cardio, but yeah, your player character's gonna get a little muscle build there, brah, when you get on the other side. So you're having to row your fiance while comforting them and hope they don't hate you for whatever you're having to say.
I just want to cut in with a brief aside. My brain went to a very weird place with that whole Jim Bro voice you were doing. All I could think was, swole, swole, swole your boat gently cross the creek.
Oh, I'm going to have to remember that one.
Oh
my God. So yeah, I have enjoyed everything, and what I could play in this section, I did genuinely enjoy the gameplay, even if stealth is like my least favorite genre. Not that I won't play it, I do enjoy it, but I'm terrible at it by default. But this little section, I was just like, it felt like in those conversations you were having with the other Scout Corps members, like they could have given you hints of what you should say.
Right.
Oh, and that reminds me. Good segue. One of them, when you first start talking, has this great turn of phrase. Really gave us a run for our honey.
Oh,
I love
no.
It works. I love it so much.
No, I mean, it's not that's not out of character for the Redwall franchise. Brian has already put like turns of phrase that would be common in our world, just slightly rewritten for Redwall thing, like acorn for your thoughts instead of penny for your thoughts. So, and I'm sure if we go back into the books, we can find other ones. So that is not out of place, but man, that's bad. That makes me laugh, but also groan. So
yes, doesn't make me groan because that's my style of humor. But if I tried sharing that with almost anybody else in my life, they'd probably look at me like I've grown a third nostril.
Matthias, you say that as if I hadn't noticed your puns throughout the years.
I mean, if you hadn't, I would question how much you were actually listening to what I was saying and decide to be offended.
I'm sorry, what? Who's talking? I couldn't resist.
No, that's perfect.
So yes, you come ashore, you meet other Lily Grove survivors who readily, and your job is here, your fiance is basically like, hey, everything kind of hurts. Can you find me an easy path through the forest? So, and you get to meet other, like I said, other Lily Grove survivors. Your love is hurt, but they were told not explicitly dying outright, but okay, yeah. And we meet two of them outright. Albert, is it? I think is the character name.
I don't remember.
Yeah, we'll go with Albert and Pickerel. Let's talk about Pickerel here, because Albert's actually kind of useful. Albert is basically, he's implied to be an older mouse. You know, maybe things are starting to hurt a little more than he'd like, but he can keep up with you. And he agrees.
They mentioned in one of like the little backstory bits of exposition that Liam and Sophia met. He was hiding under Albert's like work table as they were Dibbins. So I think if they're in like their like late 20s, early 30s, he's probably in like his late 50s, early 60s.
Right. So he basically is like, yeah, I'll keep an eye on Sophia. You go find the path ahead. And then there's Pickerel, who is the town historian. And he begins this conversation saying, by the way, did you get my family treasure on the way out while the town was being burned to the ground? No.
Priority.
No, we didn't happen to get your family treasure. Oh, maybe you should go all the way back to Lily Grove for it, because it's a special amulet that lets you use the active sense skill while you walk, instead of having to do a dead stop. Back to Lily Grove, you say. Well, my fiance is kind of, I don't know, dying?
He's only mostly dead.
I'm okay. I'm not okay.
I'm happy.
So yeah, he mentions there's this thing, and to the player character's credit in the text, the dialogue, he's just like, yeah, I can't really do that right now. I mean, that's a cool treasure and all, but okay. Also,
like Pickerel describes, like, oh yeah, I hit it, and there's a series of clues, and to be able to actually do this, you might actually have to, go back to Lily Grove and go back in time, and it's like, clever way of putting in, go back and play the previous game. There is a commentary here.
And he also says, he also doesn't know the exact location of it, but in true Brian Jake style, but there's riddles that'll point the way.
Of course. I feel like it's like an architectural union thing there, or like civil engineers.
Yeah, you can't pass your civil service exam until you can at least craft a 3-step riddle.
Yeah. Did you take your cartography class? Yeah.
That sounds about right for Mossflower, honestly.
Yep. The Mossflower Corps of Engineers.
I mean, So the other thing he does is, and this actually diverts for like a good minute or two of dialogue, he mentions that he wants you to have a chest opened because it may contain a page from the journal Gingerbeer Green Eyes. And then he tells you who Gingerbeer Green Eyes is. Including like straight up explaining the story between him and his sister Sarmina.
Oh, yeah.
Like, huh, I know those names.
Mm-hmm.
But, well, tell me more about this this prequel story to Redwall. Maybe write it down in the book form. Honey, would you mind? Oh, you'll be fine.
Maybe make some prequel memes.
But if you haven't read it and suddenly is talking about the plot of Moshflower, it's like, really? You're going to start dropping big, like, lore stuff that doesn't happen right away at the very beginning of the book? Spoilers!
Well, I mean, if you're playing this game, you better have read Redwall by now.
I imagine the audience that someone was going for in these games overall were people who had read the franchise already.
Yes. One think, but it's also the kind of game that you could play and have, like, I don't want to say super young children, but definitely younger children. They might want to watch and see what's going on because it's very pretty bright colors.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So yeah, we're mentioning that happens, and Pickerel sends you on your way, and you get to do more of the climbing into the treetops in the little Ewok villages, because that's what it is. So
I was frustrated at this level. I thought there was an invisible wall, and I was just not playing.
Oh, I ran into that a couple of times too. Like it's right there, but
it's right there.
This invisible space that's keeping me from getting there.
Yep. Fall into the river and die.
That happened more times than I care to count. But yes, I can use the one thing I did is notice you can use the scent active scenting thing. It shows you where paw holds are, like an idea.
I totally missed that.
Where to go? Yeah. So when you try again, you know.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Well, it is time for me to tap out.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Matthias and I can finish, but thank you for coming on.
Of course. I love doing this.
Yep.
I will see you guys next time.
Yep.
Hey.
Have fun.
So moving on along, you the whole thing is to continue finding a path for your injured beloved, who somehow manages to catch up with your acrobatics this whole time, despite being injured, and so does Albert, despite being older and things are hurting now. But hey, we're not going to question it.
Yeah. How does the vaguely geriatric, probably with slight amount of arthritis mouse keep up with the sprite actively gymnastics of a scout? I don't know.
Much as your injured fiance. Yeah. So yeah.
Somebody who has injured shoulder and probably has difficulty holding on with one paw, much less two.
It's not like you're asking her to go down zip lines, or you are. You absolutely are. So, okay, it's fine, noted. So the next section kind of repeats the one that kind of broke my game in Act 1, and this is where my game broke in Act 2. Didn't outright crash, it just stopped responding to my keyboard and mouse a few times.
I hate that happens. That thing where it's like, okay, I think this is what it's supposed to be doing, and then you keep trying to do that a couple more times, it's like, it's not working. You try to troubleshoot, you do a restart, it's still not working, and it's like, is it me? Is there something that I've missed? And only when you do like research online do you find out, oh no, that's a normal bug. How do I fix this?
Yeah. So you have to go through a short section of rats patrolling with torches, and they can either see or scent you. and you have to use bushes and or barrels of flour to hide your scent. So, okay, that's fine. This is a repeat of the same mechanic from the first one. No argument here. Where my game broke is that the first time I got into a flour barrel, I could get in, I could not get out. Somehow the jump button stopped working. And I'm just sitting there in the flour barrel, hoping the vermin don't see me. Because if they do, all they need to do is shove the mouse in an air fryer and they've got lunch.
Mouse fries.
Yep. But yes, I did because time was of the essence. I did look up a YouTube video of what happened next. And we're not going through the whole thing. We're going through about half. So, yeah, this is nothing new. We did this in the first game. We're doing it in the second game. Fine. And as Matthias already said, the vermin are kind of thick, shall we say.
Dim-witted.
So, and the game actively encourages you at one point, straight up telling you that vermin cannot scent you if you are above them. So we're literally playing on the media trope of guards never look up.
I mean, it's a half overused trope, half actually somewhat realistic trope, because people don't tend to look up 45 degrees past their line of sight. So if you go up high enough, yeah, they won't see you.
Yep. So, and as I mentioned last time with Transformers Prime, this was one of my favorite gags they kept doing with the characters that were Autobot wreckers, aka basically the team of Autobots who were gone in, and because they didn't expect to have to, they were going to wreck everything, as the name would imply. So we're also eventually your player character does run to another Lily Grove survivor group, and we're told a couple of things. One, logically, some of the survivors probably did book it for Redwall. Although that's never said out loud, and I'm of two minds on this. Logically, within the game, its own internal flow, that would make sense. People would go to Redwall because that's straight up mentioned in the very original book. That's a place of safety if there's trouble in the land. But at the same time, if Redwall knew there were vermin in the area a good 6 months before Clooney shows up, that kind of changes the tenor of the original book.
Yeah, a big plot hole of, hey, we all know that this is Clooney attacking, right? This is like ancillary horde of his. There's a wear-it, and this is all very scary. And yet in the original book, there's nothing like that at all. And
I won't say it's a complete surprise that Clooney shows up, but nearly so.
Yeah, it's one of these where it's only after, Constance and Matthias are basically like, big scary rat using tail as whip is Clooney. Capiche? That it's like,
It sets in for everybody. Yeah. So
they do acknowledge at one point. I watched a bit ahead from this, so I can't remember if it was in this section or not, but they do kind of make a nod and a wink towards, it's like, Clooney, isn't he supposed to be like a boogeyman kind of character?
Gotcha. The other place we're told, and don't forget, it's not mentioned again, but as in Act 1, we are told that a Holt of Otters has basically resettled Brockhall. So presumably some of Lily Grove may have gone in that direction, but there's another settlement adding to the Mossflower lore here, that there is a active mine somewhere in Mossflower run by moles called Camp Silver Sands.
I think this is actually a really cool idea, and it does flesh out culture. And I did watch through this section when we do get there. It is very well done, and it does bring on a feeling of fleshing out and rounding out bits of mole culture that I didn't know were missing, but I appreciate that they got filled in here, and it
Yep.
actually fits well with what we know of moles.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this, but it also begs, this may be a whole episode itself, but I would love to talk about the infrastructure of Mossflower Woods in the first place. Like, it isn't until the book The Long Patrol that we see other settlement in Mossflower that isn't already the Mossflower Holt of Otters or the Logalog Shrews.
And it's actually like super far away from where Redwall actually is. It's like if Redwall's in the center of Mossflower, this is one of the far-flung corners of Mossflower near the edge.
So the fact that we're being told that, okay, yeah, Brock Hall is certainly, it's already established in canon, but we have Lily Grove, we have Camp Silver Sands. Now, I like that we're seeing more of it develop, other than just the random family home that ye old heroes of whatever book we're in happen to come across. I'm glad to see more expansion, more world building, because that's good. However, the only thing I did notice, at least in this first section of this Act 2, no one mentions, like, hey, what if we head to Salamandastron?
Yeah, that's kind of a weird, I don't want to say oversight, but it almost feels like because the only hair that we get in the original book is Basil, that they just kind of said, we're not going to pay attention to Salamandastron right now. That's a little bit too much.
We never find out if there isn't even a reigning Badger Lord or Lady at the mountain during the original book, or Madame Mayo for that matter. We don't even know what the Hera population is numbers wise, or even what they're doing during that time. Now,
Yeah,
you could sit there and make the argument that, you know, when Brian wrote the original book, Salamandastron literally didn't exist yet, which is fair. That is absolutely fair. Because it's established in Mossflower, which is the second book to come out, but it still doesn't tell us what was going on at the mountain during that time.
Yeah, I have a feeling this is, now that I'm thinking about it, a case of, hey, if we acknowledge Salamandastron and we say, oh yes, sea rats, here, let's get Badger Lord involved. Badger Lord does what Badger Lords do best, which is crush vermin. And then suddenly, how do you have no Badger in the original story if Badger is aware of Clooney's Horde's presence?
Right. I mean, you could, especially the fact that someone chose to write in the time frame they did, that does limit what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I appreciate that they're putting it so close to the original book, because the original book is still one of the best.
Just in terms of having a complete narrative that is satisfying from start to end. Yeah, there are holes like, the solitary beaver. Okay,
yep.
That's a thing. But we don't deal with, horses in Portugal ever again.
So yeah, that was this. You'll also come across a barley mill that's been in operation, they say, for quite a while, and again, more survivors. And we have sisters Dorabella and Belladora. Belladora I like. She's the one who is reasonable, is grateful, and is clearly crushing on Ichabod. More on him later. We're told outright that she has feelings for him and wants him to notice her.
Notice me, senpai.
Pretty much. Dorabella, on the other hand, is whiny, spoiled, and is complaining that she's cold in winter because rats chase her out of her house, and wants the player character to go find her, basically, down of some kind, like a bird feathers, to keep her toes warm. And you can agree to this side quest while your loved one is, I don't know, dying. So, love you, honey, but, her toes are getting blue and falling off.
Yeah, priorities, right? The person I want to spend the rest of my life with versus somebody who asked me to do them a favor, which, judging by their personality, they might not actually be worth doing the favor for. Don't at me.
The prissy stereotype is in full swing here with Dorabella. It kind of reminds me of, what was her name? Was it Celadine in Martin the Warrior?
Yes, and we also saw shades of it in Pearls with Cynthia Bankfull.
That's okay. Was it Cynthia? Or you mean Madame Mayo?
No, because in Pearls she had grown up and she was the infirmary keeper.
Okay.
She had all of those souls.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so yeah, definitely the prissy stereotype. And yeah. And like I said, Belladora is awesome, and I wish she was more in the game. So, but yes. And there was a line, at least the video playthrough of Liam, and I don't know if this was on the Sophia side, that was that it, quote, "It takes a sage to make a good spouse." And I love that line. Speaking as someone who's been in a few relationships, is in a current relationship, yeah, that's actually pretty apropos. For those of you who have never been in relationships and are listening, it takes wisdom to make them work. And each one teaches you something new. So usually several things. Now, don't get me wrong, I like this phrase. I'm going to hold on to it. I might use it in my real life. I'm still going to make fun of it, because why can't you make a good spouse out of parsley, rosemary, or thyme? Thank you. Generally, this section of the game is you find path A, you clear rats B, C, and D, repeat. Because that's basically where this keeps going.
I do want to add, was one bit of vermin dialogue I overheard very clearly in the video I watched, which was, "I found a shoe." Well, and basically be responded with something along the lines of, "Oh, how's that going to help?"
I love that line too. I heard it.
Dorabella. That feels like something Brian would have written. Just this rather inane back and forth of, okay.
Yes, you found a thing. Dorabella also mentions her frustration with her sister, her sister is 5 feet away while this conversation is going on. Like, she should be able to hear this. Because Dorabella is not impressed with Ichabod, who her sister is crushing on. And when the player character says, "Yeah, I have siblings. I get it." She's like, "Oh, you don't get my relationship with my sister." I'm like, really? Really? Like, just because, you and your sister have a super special, unique relationship that no one with siblings can't get?
I mean, I'm in no place to talk as an only child, so I'm just going to operate under the assumption that...
Yeah, let me speak up as someone who has siblings. I deliberately chose not to pry or interfere with my brother or sister's personal life, especially their love life. But you better believe, I did the due diligence of making sure if they were dating someone that I get introduced to, I was friendly and everything else, but I was also would watch and make sure they're not marrying an axe murderer. So that's what you do. However, Dorabella here is basically treating Ichabod like he's beneath her sister's notice, and he's really not. I mean, he's Scottish, but unless that's her problem.
I'm trying to think, have we ever had a case of, like, you're from thus and such a place, or you have such and such a voice, I want nothing to do with you? I don't think we've had anything quite like that before in the series.
No. I think it just goes back to Dorabella being prissy and stuck up.
A fuss budget.
Yes. Yes, indeed. So, continue on, like I said, you go through the thing, you play Home Alone, you crush vermin with barrels, and one of them does I don't think it's the Wilhelm scream, but it's another stock scream effect.
Oh, is it the Goofy scream?
No, it's not that full, the Yahoo-y. No, it's not that. So, but I've heard it before. Whatever the screen. And I'm sitting here like, yay! I'm a good scout. I didn't fight them directly. I just crushed them horribly under barrels.
Yes, I've named them for life, possibly breaking several vertebrae in the process. I'm the peaceful good guy.
And like I said before, I get why Soma didn't do direct combat. I kind of wish we could have, but I get why they don't. Ichabod, on the other hand, I like him more than Dorabella, but less than Belladora. We do eventually meet Ichabod, and like I said, he is full Scottish accent.
And a curmudgeon at that.
Yeah, he is. He basically is like, oh, you're here to rescue me. And he is also sexist. Yep, if Katie were here, I'm sure she would be complaining. But since she's not, I will pretend I'm helping her out here. Because at one point, he basically says, yes, I am escorting the sisters to this Camp Silver Sands because they're just two women and they need a big, strong mouse with them. In a series that has taken great pains to never to show us that the genders really are equal, especially when it comes to kicking vermin butt. Really? Mm-hmm. Really?
I'm going to offer minor spoilers here. Skip ahead like 30 seconds if you don't want to hear this. But there is, in the next section that we're going to be covering, he gets captured. Player character comes along and is like, yeah, I was really close to getting us out of these cages. It's like, I don't need your help. You got captured by vermin, and you don't need my help.
Does it? Please tell me it lets you like, well, okay, I'll be on my way then.
I don't think so, but the player character does call him out on it, and it's satisfying.
Okay, good. I have to wonder if you're playing as Sophia as opposed to Liam when he makes that boneheaded statement, if she calls him out.
I wonder.
Yeah. So, however, there is a minor source of comedy because, at least on the Liam playthrough, he kind of points out that Belladora is kind of sweet on him. It's just like, hey, aren't you interested? And he is, in that traditional male stereotype fashion, is completely clueless.
Uh-huh.
And when you tell him, he's just like, wait, what? Oh, really? kind of a scenario.
No skin off my nose. You can do whatever you want.
Well, it's more, I read it more like, I didn't consider this. This is now interesting. I will have to think on this kind of scenario. Finally, you take the mother of all zip lines, because that's what you keep doing to move from one section to another. And I had to admit, I was chuckling a bit because the player character actually gives out some oof, ow, as you go through branches or bushes while you zip line from one point to another. And that is on purpose. Because literally the next dialogue is like, oh, honey, sorry about that. I know you're injured, but, what's a few more scratches kind of thing. Your final act before we get to where the end point where we are today is to light the campfire.
Mm-hmm.
To end this section of the game. That's the plot-wise where we're going here.
Didn't feel like this section, there was a whole lot beyond what was basically some very basic adventuring and some exposition here and there. Story kind of picks up in the next section or two.
Mm-hmm. And, I still like what we have. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Again, my only complaints is it's more on my end than Soma Games because that I keep running into game bugs, and I think that's my hard drives. I do not know. So I'm gonna have to. I think I'm gonna end up replacing those anyway. So, but other than that, yeah, sometimes it wasn't always clear of what to do or where to go, but that's fine. I mean, we're talking to someone who grew up in that era of literally you get a game and it's like, what do I do? Where do I go? And you have no hints at all.
Yeah, back from before the days of game facts where you're able to just look up a walkthrough and, oh yeah, this is what I do. You have to make it through on your own wits.
Mm-hmm. I gotta tell you, some of those early Zelda games were a lot.
Mm.
Yep. I still like what we have here. There are some questions, to be certain, that are not necessarily answered. See what we said about Selman's Run, but that is just kind of, you have to do with the whole, it's just going to interfere with the original book's plot, which, if there's one book you do not want to interfere with, it's the original.
Yeah, that's kind of like saying, here, we're going to make an adaptation of Lord of the Rings. Here, let's mess up the canon of who's carrying the ring.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I still need to actually read those. I've tried, and I know this is nerd heresy, but man, I cannot get past Tom Bombadil. Like, it's just like a dead, like, pull the drag chute, dead stop for me every time I try to read Fellowship.
I have my hands here. I have some very old copies that passed through my hands at work, and it's like, these are donations. I'm taking these. These are mine now. I still haven't cracked them open, and I am slightly chagrined about this. I will one day.
So, let me see real quick if we have reviews.
I liked this section. It felt like it moved slow for like the first third of the game that we've covered. It could have been more substantial, but what we did get the bits that were tasty were very tasty indeed. It's just
yes.
Oh no.
Oh come on, I couldn't resist.
But we had to work through a lot of dry bits or chewy bits to get to the stuff that was actually like, oh yeah, this tastes really good.
Yep. So I'm looking forward to see what happens in this part 2. So
agreed.
And after I get some new hard drives in my system, because yeah. Till then, I did check. We don't have any new ratings or reviews, but we'd love it if people would give us some.
Yeah, we're not going to get down on our hands and knees and beg, but you know, it would be nice to have some validation. Please, just please.
And we're recording this in March, folks. I'm gonna try to put this out in a week. So, however, April approaches. And we all know what that means. Fanfiction 6 is on its way. Yay!
That. Okay. Yeah. Looks like I'm gonna have to go digging again.
Oh, I'm sure we'll find something. But if anyone wants to suggest a fanfiction for us to cover that we haven't already covered, well, we're all ears. Can't promise you we'll do it. And whose turn is it to make a trivia episode?
I think it's KD.
Ooh, I'll have to talk to her about that.
Yeah, I'll actually have to go back and re-listen to the last one because I believe the last one was mine and she won, so I think it's now her.
Yep. So I'm sure it'll be fun.
Fun.
So, have fun. It's the fanfiction episode, right? He's gonna start crying now. That being said, I am Pete, your Papa Abbott. You can find us at recorderonthewall.com. We are on all the major podcasting services, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcast, and Spotify. And if I could ever remember to post a thread on Argulalia again, I will. I just kind of I kind of was getting not frustrated but disappointed that no one was actually commenting on my Reddit threads. I'll admit that. So
if you're on Reddit, please post something so Pete's feelings aren't hurt. Please, we would take an ever so wonderful favor.
Yes, we would. And
Them.
I need to go back to the Redwall forums too. So
it's kind of quiet right there these days.
Mm-hmm. So but yeah, and then we still haven't heard any news on the Netflix series. So.
Oh, and the email, rotwpod@gmail.com.
Yes, our Twitter is rotw pod as well.
Although, how many people are actually using Twitter nowadays?
Well, I mean, I just keep the podcast Twitter going, but I kind of let my other Twitters go idle after you know who took over it.
He who should not be named.
Indeed.
Because we don't want to give him attention, not because he's like, a Dark Lord or anything.
Oh, please. I would love to rant against him, but if I do, I'm going to have his fanboys, giving us 1 stars on iTunes, and I just don't want to fight that fight.
No.
But, yeah. So I still occasionally post on our Redwall Twitter as well. That being said, I'm Pete.
And I'm Matthias, and I guess I have like 4 months of catching up to do.
You didn't miss too much.